If you are an engineer, please listen to this so that I know if I am making any sense at all.
Mariah's question is about for loops. And first of all, I love this format of asking questions via TikTok video. I think it's so brilliant. But she's making a game with Mario and using for loops to make Mario go up the stairs. So here's a quick explanation of for loops, the way that I kind of structured my mental model. First thing to know is that computers are very obedient, but they're super literal. So what you're doing when you're programming is you're telling the computer exactly the steps that it needs to execute a program. Now, to get Mario to go up the steps, you could literally tell the computer incrementally, step by step. Mario, go up a 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 step. Actually, let's just draw it out. So essentially, this is what you want to tell your computer to do. You want to tell it, Mario, go up by one step. Mario, go up by one step. Mario, go up by one step. Now you could do this, and each of these could be like a function, right? This could be, like a function, a function, a function, and all separate functions. And the computer is just gonna go down the tree. That's an ugly arrow. It's just gonna go down one by one and execute each of these in order. Once this is gonna start, once this ends, we'll start this function. Once this ends, we'll start this function. And then once this ends, we'll just continue down the path. The for loop gives us a shortcut. What I love about for loops too is that they exist in multiple languages. So I know, Mariah, you're learning C. I'm a JavaScript engineer. We have for loops in JavaScript as well. So let's talk about the pieces of a for loop. Now, before we write any code, let's first visualize what's actually happening here. So for Mariah's game, she says that Mario starts at the first step, which is actually 0. We're starting at the bottom level, and then we can go up any number of steps. It can go up one step or more than one step. We can go up 1, 2 steps at a time, all the way up to step 8. And then after step 8, Mario falls off. So we can go up the steps until we hit number 8, and then we fall off, okay? I couldn't find a Mario, but I did find an angry Pikachu. So we'll use Pikachu to visualize this concept of the steps. So right now we outlined 3 different rules. The first rule is one, let's just call Pikachu Mario for now. Mario starts at 0. Second rule, Mario can't go past step 8. And the third rule we talked about is that Mario can take 1 or more steps at a time. My handwriting's getting worse and worse as I go. So remember how we said a for loop is just a shortcut pretty much. Rather than doing the incremental function by function by function to tell the computer each individual step, the for loop says, just do the thing that I said until I said stop. So Mario, go up the step, and it's just the computer basically looks at that for loop and it runs it all over again. So it looks at the for, parentheses, and it goes through the list and it executes everything within the bracket as long as those conditions are true. So let's talk more about what that means. Here's an example of a common for loop in JavaScript, but if it were C, just this let would be an int. But we're telling the computer, instead of the individual functions, this is our shortcut. So this is saying all of that stuff that we said with the Mario, do this, do that. So this for loop is saying, this is the initializer. This is the number that we're going to start at, and we'll break all this down. This is where we're going to stop at, and then this is incrementally what we're going to update. Until this condition is no longer true, we're going to just keep console logging. So basically, we're saying go up the step, go up the step, go up the step until we hit the 5th step. Now let's bring this back to the example that Mariah actually had. So with the 3 steps that we outlined before, we actually have the 3 parameters that we're going to need to tell our computer what to do for our for loop. The first rule that we had for the game is that Mario has to start at 0. So our first parameter, and we're using C now, we're going to, and if this were JavaScript, this would be a let, but basically we're saying that this variable is going to be of type integer, so int step. Commonly, you would see this as just an I in examples on the internet, but this is just the name of your variable. So you could call it whatever you want. You're in control. I called it step here because variable names can get super confusing, and I don't like single letter variable names, but that's a whole other tangent. So we're telling our computer that Mario is going to start at step 0. Next was the fact that Mario can't go past step 8. Our second condition, and this is called the condition, is that step, the variable that we declared earlier, has to be less than or equal to number 8. Okay, pretty easy. Now the third one, Mario can take one or more steps at a time. Now, in the common examples online, you'll just see that I++, or in our case, it would be step++, which means that we're incrementing only by 1. And that's the simple case. But in our case, we can take one or more steps. So step++ isn't what we're going to actually do here. We're going to need something that's more dynamic to account for our use case. So our first two parameters were easy. We have the initializer, which is just 0. We're starting at 0. And then we have the stop. This is called our condition. So up until we get to this point, we're going to just do a for loop, a for loop until step equals 0. The last parameter, though, and let's explain this one. This one is called our update. So the way that I think of this is we're telling the computer where we're going to start the next for loop. What step is going to be equal to when we start the next for loop? Obviously, the first one is at 0, but we're going to keep going over this list. Now, if we kept it at 0, we wouldn't get anywhere because 0 is never going to be equal to 8, right? So we have to increment these steps, like Mario has to go up those steps in order to get to the 8. So this is telling the computer how to get to that step. And as I mentioned, because we're doing a more complicated version of this, because Mario can go up one or more steps, we're going to have to add in a little function to tell the computer what step is going to be equal to every time that we run the loop. So we've added another variable. And just for the sake of ease, we're just going to hard code to a 3. Mariah, for you, since this number isn't always going to be 3, it's going to be something dynamic, maybe a random number or maybe a number that your user passes in. This is going to be a dynamic thing. But for the sake of this example, let's just use a 3 here just to show you how this is going to work. So basically we're saying, okay, we're going to start at 0. We're going to go up until 8. But then when for the first one, we'll start at 0. For the next one, start at step plus jump. So the next one is going to be 3. So Pikachu is going to start at 3. Does that make sense? And then everything that happens inside these brackets is whatever you want it to be. So if you wanted to say when Mario gets to step 5, you could do like an if inside here. And if step equals 5, then blah, blah, blah. Or if, step is greater than 10, which it wouldn't get up to because we stop at 8, then fall off or whatever. But you have control of what happens in here. Just remember that the computer is going to take this just like it did with all of those functions that we wrote. Mario go up 1 step, Mario go up 1 step, Mario go up 1 step. Instead, we're saying just keep doing the same thing in a loop until this condition is no longer true.